What's up, Houston? Big episode today for us, especially me. Today we have MLB All-Star Chad Cordero. If you want to introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about your background all the way up to college, if you don't mind.
Okay, yeah. What's up? I'm Chad Cordero. I played in the big leagues for about 6 years before unfortunately got hurt. Was All American at Cal State Fullerton for 3 years, from 2001 until 2003. Was then drafted in the first round in 2003 by the Montreal Expos. Made my major league debut that same year. I think I threw in about 19 games in A ball, and then went straight to the big leagues and was there all the way up until my unfortunate injury. But now coaching high school softball. I've coached college baseball back at Cal State Fullerton. Also coached with the Reds a little bit for a couple of years before I decided to step away from coaching professionally. So this way I can be close to my kids. And now coaching high school softball at a private school in Hawaii.
That's awesome.
Nice.
So, growing up, of course, every kid kind of has like the dreams of playing Major League Baseball. To you, was it something in like junior high, high school that you knew that this was a possibility, or was it when you got to Cal State and was it All American your freshman year? Or how'd all that go
Yeah,
about?
yeah. I mean, like you said, every baseball player's dream growing up is to play Major League Baseball. And that was my dream. I didn't know exactly how to even do that. I really didn't understand the whole process, and really until my senior year in high school. And it was probably maybe April of that year was when I really started to figure it out. I was drafted out of high school by the Padres in the 26th round. Did not sign. Ended up going to school. So, but I didn't really figure out that I could possibly make it until I was at Fullerton, because even in high school, I was a good pitcher. I had very good control. I didn't throw that hard. I think I was like 85, 86. But I had very good command. And then once I got to Cal State Fullerton, that's when I really started to learn how to pitch. And then when I played for Team USA the summer of my sophomore year, I think I threw in 21 innings, gave up 200 runs, and that's really, I think, what kind of put me on the map with teams. That's when I started hearing my name out there a little bit more, and that's when started to really understand what the process was 100%. Because even after I got drafted out of high school, still didn't really get it. But once I went to Cal State Fullerton, played for Team USA, and then my junior year getting drafted by the Expos is really when things started to click, and I started to figure out that I might have a future in this game.
So I got a question for you. So you said you got drafted out of high school. How hard was it to turn that down?
So the draft rules back then were a lot different. They could pretty much make offers up to you up until the first day that you stepped on campus at school. There was no cutoff date like there is now. I don't even know when the exact cutoff date is now. But you also had stuff like draft and follows, to where a team could draft you. You go to a JC, and the team still has your rights until that following season. Still, I didn't even really realize that until I was at Fullerton. They had explained it to me a little bit, because they were trying to get me to go to a JC after I signed, or after I got drafted with the Padres. But my heart was set on going to school, so I ended up going to Cal State Fullerton. But the way it happened was they drafted me in the 26th round. They told me how much they had. I think it was like the offer was $10,000, which a lot of money for 18-year-old. No matter no
Mhm.
matter how no, or actually no matter how old you are, it's still $10,000. It's kind of hard to turn down, especially when your dream is playing professionally. But like I said, my goal was to play Cal State Fullerton. My goal was to continue and get my education. So turned that down, but they kept on me. I played American Legion throughout the summer with my high school. We ended up making the state tournament, and the Padres were pretty much at every game, because my velocity had jumped from about 85, 86 to 93, 94 within a couple weeks. Don't know how it did
Mhm.
it. I wasn't throwing. I mean, I wasn't working out, wasn't doing anything. If anything, I was drinking maybe more Jolt Colas, if anything else, during the summer, because I didn't have anything to worry about. But I jumped up to about 93, 94 miles an hour. So their offers kept increasing. And so the day before I was supposed to step on campus at Cal State Fullerton, they came back with their final offer, offered me $110,000 plus school. And I was like, that's kind of hard. That was a little bit harder to turn down than the other one.
Hmm.
But at the end of the day, I talked to my parents. I called my grandpa from my mom's side, and he said, "No, you're going to school," and that was it. That was decided. I was going to school, and I mean, ended up paying off.
Yeah.
And so Cal State Fullerton had some great teams. How was your time there? I mean, obviously you made the right choice, but like, how was those 3 years in college?
They were the best 3 years I've ever had. The coaching that I had were it was the best I've ever experienced in my entire life. They're the ones who really taught me how to be not only a better baseball player, but a better person in general. They were the three paid coaches were the three best players coaches you could ever want to play for. Their teams, like you said, they were very good. My junior year, I think we had nine of our players that got drafted that year ended up making the big leagues. My junior year, my team was myself, Justin Turner, Ricky Romero, and then Kurt Suzuki was our catcher. So,
Mhm.
four guys or three guys right there, not including myself, that had pretty decent careers. And then our first baseman, and he's now the assistant hitting coach for the Rockies as well. So we had a very good team. Unfortunately for us, we could not beat Stanford all 3 years I was there. They had our number, unfortunately, but it was a blast. I mean, I learned a lot. I learned how to be, like I said, I learned how to be a better baseball player. Learned how to actually pitch during my time there, and it paid off. Getting drafted. I think it was 20th overall my junior year. Not too bad for somebody who's about 5'10" and a half. So not bad.
Giving me a lot of hope here. So one thing I'm very interested in, and I hear from a lot of people who get drafted in any sport. Do you have a story from draft night?
Yeah, I guess you can kind of say that. I mean, during the draft, we were getting ready for our super regional series against Arizona State. So I think the draft was taking place during the day. I did not know, I didn't realize I was going to be a first rounder until I got told while I was at practice. All up leading up to the draft, I was told fifth round, maybe sixth round, which would have been great. I mean, if I would have got drafted in those rounds, I probably would have ended up coming back to Fullerton, finishing my career there, and then
Mhm.
hopefully getting drafted again as a senior. But the day before, around like 8 o'clock at night, the night before the draft, I got a call from the Expo scout saying, "Hey, I want to meet with you. I'm flying into town." And it kind of like made me like kind of surprised me a little bit. I was like, "Okay, what does he want?" It turns out he ended up getting in a little bit too late, and so he wanted to meet with me early morning, Monday morning. So he called me at around 7 o'clock in the morning and say, "Hey, I can't meet with you," but it still is like I was starting to think like, what's going on? So I get dressed, I get up, get dressed. I end up going to our super regional practice, and I'm literally standing on first base receiving throws from our shortstop during batting practice, and I see the Expo scout there with the Expos hat. He goes down to the field, talks to our head coach George Horton at the time, and apparently he said, "Hey, we drafted so and so." So I saw slowly start after that. I see him started making his way around the first baseline. So he's in the stands walking towards where I am, kind of weird. And then Coach Horton comes up, said, "Hey, somebody here wants to talk to you." And I went over there, and sure enough, he was like, "Congratulations, the Expos just took you in the first round of the draft." I was like, I didn't know what to say.
Yeah.
I was completely blown away. I had no idea that was even going to happen. I mean, I'm 5'10" and a half. I'm not your stereotypical pitcher. Most guys are 6'1", 6'2", built pretty well, and I'm just a regular old 5'10" and a half, Mexican kid from California who maybe throws 90, 91 on a good day when depending on how much soda or how much caffeine I had that day. I didn't expect someone like me to be a first round draft pick, but there I was, getting drafted by the Expos, and it took me by surprise, but at the same time, I couldn't be happier.
And if that surprised you, then spending what 19 games in in the
Yeah.
minors and
Well,
the call
even
up,
that,
that had to
even
be
even that story is crazy because so after the draft, my team is still in it. We end up beating ASU 2 out of 3 games. So we end up going to the World College World Series. We get knocked out by Stanford. So
Mhm.
right after we got knocked out, the Expos called me and I was like, "Yeah, just give me a week and I'll." They were like, "Okay, sounds good, no problem." So a week later, they called me up. They're like, "Yeah, like come on over." So they came over. I think the next day. So it was a scout that drafted me. The same scout that came to our practice. He was there. along with one of the front office guys. They showed up to my parents' house. I didn't have an agent at the time. It was literally just myself, my mom, and my dad. That's it.
Mhm.
And so they came in. They came in. They sat around. They sat around my parents' kitchen table, and they said, "Here's the offer." And they said, "The quicker you sign, there's a very good possibility that you get called up at the end of the year." So I was like, "All right, show me where it is. Tell me where to sign." And it literally took me 30 seconds from the time they offered me to the time I signed the paper. And I think it
Mhm.
kind of shocked them a little bit because I think they were thinking that I was going to maybe try to get a little bit more money out of them, but I mean, I got offered a lot of money, as a 21-year-old kid. It's more, and I even told my parents, I was like, "This is the most money I've ever thought I would make in my entire life." So I signed right then and there, and yeah, 19 games pitching in A ball, and I was up about a month and a half later.
Nice. Actually,
Oh,
I brought out a special something for this episode, so if you would just give me 1 second, just change real quick. This is taking a
Good
lot for me
looking
to wear
hat.
this right now, so just letting
Oh,
you
I
know that.
bet.
This there's actually a story behind this hat. I got the I think it's on this side. I got the you can't see it. I got the Trey Turner stitch in it the day before he got traded. So
Oh shoot!
yeah, it's not very cheap to get him stitched on. So I was very upset about
Right.
that. But yeah, the Nationals have always kind of been my second team. I grew up watching Bryce Harper dominate on the field,
uh,
and I just love the cockiness he had to him. And
right.
so I'm still a fan of the Nationals. It's hard to say that at this time,
Yeah.
as I know you're aware of. But
Yeah.
I was talking to my brother, and I told him you were going to be on here. I said, have you ever used him in the video game or anything? He said that when he would do franchise mode on MLB The Show back in the day, he would always pick
Huh.
you up or trade for you because you were just a beast on there. So my brother's gonna love watching this video.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad I was able to help your brother out.
Yeah, yeah, he's
Hopefully, I
thankful.
didn't
so
blow too many saves.
so you make it to the minors real fast. How is it? You were what, Montreal? You were there for 2 years. You knew that you were
Mhm.
about to make the move to Washington. How was your time at Montreal? The people, the place, the team, all that.
I loved Montreal. The city of Montreal was by far one of my favorite cities I've ever been able to play in. It's beautiful. You feel like you're in a European city. The
Mm,
architecture is a little bit older. It's a little bit different. It's got a lot of red brick to it. Whereas when you go to Toronto, Vancouver, you still kind of feel like you're in the States a little bit. But when you're in the province of Quebec, it is 100%. You feel like you're in a different country, and I loved it. The people there, they were very big baseball fans.
mm,
Unfortunately, the old ownership group for the Expos kind of let them down a little bit. Plus, the field or the stadium, the Olympic Stadium that we were playing at, wasn't the greatest. I mean, it's a dome stadium, and you would still have rain puddles in the outfield because the roof was leaking. Um,
mm,
Guys would get sick because pigeon feathers were flying out of the AC and stuff like that. So it wasn't the best situation, but the city of Montreal and the people there who were fans of the game were incredible. And I sincerely hope that one day Montreal gets a city or gets another major league team there. It's one of the best big league cities that you could possibly have. And I know a lot of guys loved it. A lot of guys do miss going up there.
mm.
And so hopefully one day they get a situation where they have a good ownership group come in, put a stadium downtown, and I think it's going to take off. But because a lot of the North American or the baseball fans from the U.S., they love going on that trip, especially the ones from New York and Philadelphia, because it's not that far of a trip.
Mhm.
It's really easy to get there. I want to say it's only like 40 miles from the border. So all the fans, especially from New York, it's a really easy trip for them just to hop in their car, go across the border real quick, and watch the Mets. It was
Mhm.
a huge destination for a lot of fans. So hopefully, like I said, that if they ever have an opportunity to have a team out there again, I hope they do, because if they do, and they take care of it and they have the right type of stadium, baseball will take off again.
Yeah, and I think that the Expos arguably had one of the best uniform and logo combinations. Like it was, because you still see people out in Houston today wearing the Expos hat and everything. I mean, I see the
Oh yeah.
shorts daily, t-shirts. It was a great logo and great color scheme.
Yeah, the whoever came up with the logo was, in my opinion, was a genius because I
Oh
think it
yeah,
was like 5 logos in one.
yeah,
And a lot of casual baseball fans they didn't really realize that. And so that's what I loved about it because it was like more than just an M. It was like you could see there was an E in there, there's a B in there. The E could also pass for a C and a B for Charles Brockman, who was their owner of the Expos for a long time. So whoever,
Mm-hmm.
it's just like it's just like the Milwaukee Brewers glove and ball logo. It's more than just a glove. It's so much more than that. And the Expos logo with their pinwheel hats and their old 1980s uniforms, that by far were some of the best, along with that Houston jersey that you have in the background up there.
So, cool thing, you threw the last ever pitch in Montreal, and then you go and you close out the first ever game in Nationals Park. How was the transition like? Getting a new house over there, starting that first year, and then pretty much going up to your 2005 season. If there's anything you want to talk about.
Yeah, it was great. That 2004 season was a little bit tough when we were in Montreal. We were trying to figure out what we're going to do. There's still talks of us getting contracted, so we were trying to figure out, okay, what does that mean for all the players? And then we started hearing, okay, we're going to relocate, and then we're trying to figure out like where we're going to go. We had heard maybe Vegas or Portland, so I was thinking a lot of guys were hoping it was Vegas. Never once had we heard it was going to be Washington D.C., but I
Mm,
think that made the most sense. Overall because of the rich history they had. Unfortunately, that they did lose a couple teams with the Twins and the Rangers, but it is a big baseball city. And I think that what makes it a good baseball city too is because you have a lot of transplants. Nobody is actually from DC, so no matter who you're playing, you're going to have a lot of people come out to the games because they want to watch their old hometown team play.
mm,
But like I said, we didn't really hear anything about DC until it was actually announced. So it was a little bit different. But I was excited. I love history. I love being able to go visit the monuments and stuff like that. I was able to go visit the Pentagon a couple times whenever they came out and asked for us, whoever wanted to go out and visit. I always said yes. So I think I want to say I visited all 3 times that we were asked to go visit. I raised my hand. You never want, for me, you don't want to miss an opportunity like that to do that. So
mm.
I loved it. I love DC. It was very easy to navigate, and try to figure out my way around there. They have a great subway system out there, and the people there are very helpful, very friendly. So I ended up just getting an apartment out there. Lived in an apartment whenever during the season, and then I would come back home from California. So it was a little bit. It was a big change, but it was very easy. It wasn't very stressful at all. Like I said, they had a lot of people in place to help us out since we were relocating. It was a new city we had to try to figure out. So the Nationals did a very good job of being able to put us in touch with a lot of people that would help us out.
And so, obviously, you had an amazing career. I have it here. You had 127 career saves, a career 2.89 ERA, especially out the pen. I know that's hard. What made 2005 what 2005 was for you? You were an all-star. You were the NL reliever of the year. Kind of just go about that.
To be honest, I really don't know. I wasn't doing much differently than I was the year before. The only thing was I had a lot more confidence. My rookie year with Montreal, I struggled with my control because I doubted myself a lot.
Mm,
So I was nibbling around the plate because I was afraid to get hit. And I didn't trust my ability to get guys out. So what helped me was I gained some confidence, but that was all because of Frank Robinson. Um,
mm,
2000, late 2004, when I was struggling a little bit, I was kind of afraid I was going to get sent down. He called me in his office, and he just told me, and he sat me down. He basically told me this. He's like, if we didn't think you were good enough to get guys out, you would have been sent down a long time ago. It's like and he basically said, like, we trust you, just go out, but you have to trust yourself. Do not give these hitters too much credit. And that really kind of like it hit me. I was like, here I am sitting in the office right across, from one of the best baseball players to ever play the game, and he's my manager, and he's telling me this, and I'm like, well, if I have a Hall of Fame manager telling me this is something that I really need to, to take in.
mm,
And so after that, my walks dropped down from 2004 with 44 saves to 2005. I think I had around 16 or 7, or no, I'm sorry, 44 walks to 17 walks the next year,
Mm.
and a lot of those were intentional walks. So his words to me really helped my confidence out a lot, because not then the next year I just went out and attacked guys. When I was throwing the big leagues, I was throwing 90, 91. Wasn't throwing very hard, especially for a closer, but my command was that was my go-to. And I threw honestly about 99% fastballs. I had a slider, I had a changeup, didn't really use them all that much. I just attacked guys with hitters with my fastball. I went in and out, up and down. That was what I was able to do.
Mm-hmm.
I was trying to do that the year before, but I was trying to be a little bit too fine, because I was so worried about guys getting hits off of me. But that next year, I went out there and attacked them, and I trusted myself, and it paid off.
That's awesome. And so today you get all like the social media stuff about like you've seen the guys getting into the Pro Bowl, the All-Star game. How'd you find out you're going to be an All-Star game? Because relievers don't get voted. So who told
Right.
you? What was your reaction? And then how was the All-Star game?
Yeah. So I remember we were playing in Chicago against the Cubs at the time. It was our Sunday game. It was our last game in Chicago. Frank had called up a meeting with all the players, all the coaches, and he was, I forget his exact words, but he was talking about the All-Star game and what it meant to him. And then he said something like, "And we'd like to announce the Washington Nationals' first ever All-Star players, Ivan Hernandez and Chad Cordero." And I'm like, I kind of looked around. I'm like, what? Like, you got to be like kidding me. Like, there's no way. I mean, I was having a very good year, but like I said, relievers don't get voted in by the fans. They get voted in by the players and the managers. So for me, is like knowing that I got voted in by my peers. That meant a whole lot. So and having Frank tell me that I was going to be an all-star, that meant the world to me, because I looked up to him a lot. So I think I started crying a little bit, and I think I kind of froze as well. So Brian
Mm.
Snyder, who was our catcher at the time, he was like, "Dude, grab your phone, go call your parents." So I grabbed my phone, I ran into the back room in the locker room at Wrigley, and called my parents real quick, and I told them that I made the All-Star team, and they couldn't believe it. I think they were just as shocked as I was. I think my mom was crying a little bit, my dad was crying a little bit. So they were all excited. I was crying a little bit. So it was a great moment. And then playing in the All-Star game was one of the best experiences, man. I mean, I was sitting next to guys that I grew up watching. I was sitting next to, who was it, John Smoltz, you know,
Mm-hmm.
talking crap to Billy Wagner and stuff. So it was awesome. Being in the same room as those guys that I grew up watching. Because I was still 2005. I was 23 years old. I was still a kid. Playing with guys and getting made fun of by guys that I grew up watching when I was still in high school. I had to pinch myself, because I couldn't believe it was even happening. And then to be able to actually throw in the game, I'm still can't believe it happened, and I'm very thankful it did. And how that happened was, the National League were down, and I think we were down. I think it was like 7-3 at the time, eighth inning. Jake Peavy was on the mound, and so Tony La Russa, who was the manager, he called down to the bullpen, and he asked for me. So I was like, okay, well, that's kind of cool. She was like, hey, so he was like, do you want to get the last out? I was like, heck yeah, I want to get the last out. So he's like, all right, so you got the last out. Because I knew in the back of my head, I knew, it was like, I can't take this for granted. Like, I might never get this opportunity to ever throw an All-Star game again. And unfortunately, I only had that one All-Star game, so I'm glad I had that opportunity to throw. But so I took advantage of it. I was like, yeah, heck yeah, I want to throw. So he was like, all right, you got the last out. But I was kind of sweating a little bit, because I think the situation was, I think there was one out, and with PV on the mound, and there was running on first base. So I was kind of hoping that, because with PV, he was a very big ground ball pitcher. So
Mm-hmm.
I was hoping and praying that he did not get a ground ball, and luckily he didn't. I think somebody flew out, and then I came in, faced Pudge in Detroit while he was playing for the Tigers, and struck him out. And I, you know, I wanted to scream, so I was so excited. But it was a great experience, and it's something that I'll never forget.
Yeah, I feel like an All Star game. But besides the championship, of course, I feel like an All Star game would be a huge privilege, and it's just cool that you got to do that at all. Like you said, you don't want to take it for granted, and
Hmm.
luckily you got to pitch in that game. But how many All-Star games do you think you would have played in if you didn't unfortunately get that injury?
Maybe another one at the very most. But because after that '05 season, I had good seasons the next couple of years, but nothing like that '05 season.
Mm-hmm.
I think that year everything clicked for me. And unfortunately, I started going downhill. My arm wasn't feeling as great the last couple of years, but um, but just that '05 season, everything clicked. I don't know. Maybe I didn't. I don't make anything, or maybe I don't make another one if I even if I do stay healthy. So I was very fortunate to get that one, and that's an experience that I can nobody can ever take away from me.
For sure, for
And
sure. And
so,
go ahead.
so playing in the 2000s, I enjoy going back and watching all those videos. Um, this is kind of a two-part question. One, who were like the pitchers that you enjoyed playing against, talking to? Like for me, it would be Trevor Hoffman. Like if I could meet any guy, it would be I want to go talk to Trevor. And so,
Right.
is there anyone like that for you when you go to different MLB cities? And then the second part to the question is, there are some great hitters in the 2000s. Which hitters gave you the most trouble, or who were your favorite to face, who were your least favorite to
Mhm.
face? Kind of
That's
just start
exactly what
name
I was going to
dropping.
ask.
Those are both those questions are very easy for me to answer. Being a Southern California kid, I grew up watching Trevor Hoffman. I loved watching Trevor Hoffman. I had a chance to meet him a couple times when I was playing at Cal State Fullerton. I remember we played ASU during spring training, and so at the time with the Padres, Phil Nevin was on the team, and Phil Nevin was a Fullerton alum. So he came out and he brought a couple guys, and one of them who came out with him was Trevor. So I got to meet him, and I was in heaven. I didn't know at the time that I was going to be able to be a peer down the line. I just thought I was fanboying over him. I was a little kid watching him when I was in high school. Got to see the World Series when they made it. I think it was in '98. I think it was when they played the Yankees. And then having a chance to meet him, I was in heaven. And so getting to know him, getting to meet him, and then getting to play against him was a dream come true. And he couldn't have been nicer. Every time I saw him, he came up and said hi to me. He shook my hand, gave me a hug, and I couldn't believe that was even happening. Here I am, a young kid, a young closer, looking up to this guy, and here he is, one of the greatest closers of all time. Just walking up to me and started talking to me like I've known him for 10 years. It was great. But he was so down to earth and so easygoing and such a huge influence on myself. And I couldn't have been more thankful to have met him and been able to talk to him. I remember the funniest time or the best time I met him was when he was with the Brewers, and I had just showed up to the field. He had just showed up at the same time, and here he comes rolling in on a longboard skateboard with I think he had board shorts on and flip flops, just coming in like he was still in San Diego. And I thought I thought that was the coolest thing ever. So looking up to Trevor, having a chance to meet him and talk to him a little bit about pitching, that I couldn't have been, like I said, I could have been more thankful. And then your second part of that question, the two hitters I absolutely hated facing, hit back to back in the Braves lineup. Chipper and Andrew Jones, I could not get them out, could not do it. But actually, it was actually the entire Braves lineup had a lot of trouble with them. But Chipper and Andrew, they had something on me. They figured they saw something in my delivery that kind of tipped my pitches for them, and I never figured out what it was. Because halfway through the 2005 or 2006 season, I can't remember which one. That's when they started teeing off on me. So before that, I got them out a lot. I was striking them out a lot, getting a lot of weak ground balls, a lot of weak pop ups. But something happened halfway through that either '05 or '06 season. I can't remember which one it was. That literally everything that I threw was either hit off the top of the fence or over the fence. I remember I threw Andrew a changeup, a first pitch changeup. I'd never threw changeup to right-handed hitters, and I threw him one, and he sat on it like he knew it was coming. And he turned on it, fell to one knee, and the ball went about 500 feet in the upper deck at RFK Stadium in DC. And I'm like, there's nothing I could do to get these guys out anymore. I mean, literally even all their outs were hard line drive somewhere that probably almost took one of my infielders' gloves off. Like everything they hit was hard, and I could not ever figure out why. But I loved it. It was cool. Unfortunately, I had to face them a lot. With them being in the same division as the Nationals, but it is what it is. It's part. If you want to be a closer, you have to face the best hitters a lot of times.
Mhm. And so, kind of like you were saying that like they picked up something throughout the thing. One of the questions I wanted to ask, and it kind of rolls right into it, is what are like the scouting reports back then compared to kind of the analytics that players are getting? Because now there is nothing they can't find. You can go as low as single A, and they have an iPad full of stats. So like,
Right.
how was it? How was it for you? And being a pitching coach for the Reds, right? There,
Mhm.
what have you seen in the growth and comparisons?
So back then the scouting reports was kind of simple. They still had video. Obviously, it's
Mhm.
not as much as they have right now, but they had video. Um, but a lot of it was basic stuff. Um, hey, he can't hit off speed. He has trouble with the curveball. He can't hit anything up. But for me, with scouting reports, a lot of times I didn't throw those pitches that they that they couldn't hit. Like a
Mhm.
lot of guys that we faced, they couldn't hit good curveballs. I didn't throw a curveball, I threw a slider. And even though I threw a slider, I never threw my slider. Like I literally just threw offense. So I kind of had to take the scouting reports with a grain of salt. It's because they're also, like I said, there's nothing like what they are these days. And even when the 2 years when I was with the Reds, I didn't really see as much scouting reports as a higher levels because I was short season, so I was getting all the guys who were just drafted. So the scouting reports that I got were just stuff that I got off the internet or someone had passed on from the year before. So I didn't really get to see all the analytical stuff that's going on behind the scenes and with the upper levels because like I said, I was short season, so we didn't get as much stuff that as the upper levels got. But you know what? It's kind of funny. What helped me out when I was selling was I used to play the MLB 2K games, and I kid you not, I figured out that those hot and cold zones in those games were the exact real hot cold zones of the players that were in those games.
Mhm.
And so I would literally whatever team we were coming up against over the weekend or during the week, whatever series we had, I would play with the Nationals against those teams and kind of see what their hot and cold zones were. And it worked. Like I figured out like Julio Franco, his cold zone was anything up he could not hit, and that's what it showed on the game. So I literally just threw him all fastballs up, and he couldn't hit it. Pujols, I think Pujols was like 1 for 5 off of me, and he couldn't hit right-handed changeups. And I
Mhm.
figured that out in the game. And so I actually threw Pujols one right-handed changeup, and I got him to pop up. So believe it or not, like that's what I used. That my scouting report was the MLB 2K games back in the early 2000s.
Wow.
Didn't realize it was going to work, but it worked for me.
Yeah.
Well, they were called what? Inside edge, right? That's the little thing that used to pop up above the
Yeah,
strike
I, I
zone.
I think so. Yeah, and I didn't even realize that was a legit thing until I implemented it in the game one time, and I figured out that was true.
I didn't know that. I did not know that.
Hmm. Although they weren't 100% accurate because with me, they always said I threw a two seam fastball and a curveball, and I threw a fastball slider and a changeup, but that was it. But everything else was 100% accurate.
Hmm.
Wow. I can't believe that.
And so,
That's honestly like that's pretty funny.
Yeah, it was. I remember I was telling some of my teammates, and they're like, "Get out of here!" Like, no way. I'm like, "Yeah," no, like, look. And so someone did it, and they looked at it, and they're like, "No way!" Like, because I think they played it as themselves.
mm.
I can't remember who it was, and they were like, "Yeah, that's sure enough. That's my real cold zone." So it validated what I was telling them.
And so being a closer, there's definitely like, and I know this pitching at the collegiate level, which is nothing compared to the major league level. But one thing that I struggled with a lot was save opportunities and non-save opportunities. And I know a few major leaguers, like the ones that I think of are Craig Kimbrell and Ken Giles, just their splits between save opportunities and just regular outings.
Hmm.
Um, do you have any advice for me? How did you handle that? Was that something you struggled with?
Yep,
'Cause
I struggle with that too. That's a closer thing because you're so used to coming in to those pressure situations. And anytime you're just coming in just to get work because you haven't thrown in a long time, it's not the same. You don't have that same adrenaline rush. A lot of us closers, that's what we feed off. We feed off of our adrenaline, and and we love those pressure situations. And when you're coming into a game where you might be up 10-1, maybe you're down like 7-2, and you're just coming in to get work because you haven't thrown it for a long time, you don't get that same feeling. So for me, I'd struggle with that from like the first 2 years, um, and just like a lot of coaches do. So you just got to find a way to just treat every game like it's a pressure situation, no matter what. I know it's a little bit harder and a little bit easier said than done, but you have to find a way to make it as game-like as possible. In other words, like try to find a way to pretend, like, just make yourself feel like it's a close game. Um,
Mhm.
for me, I just you know convinced myself in my head that it was a close game, and it kind of worked for me. Every now and then it didn't, but it's tough. It's not easy having to pitch in games where there's not a save opportunity, or you're coming in a close game or a tie game. It's different, and no matter how much you try to convince yourself, it is a close game. It's hard, it's tough, but you just got to do whatever you can to try to do that. And sometimes it'll work, and sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah, and a lot of closers that you see nowadays, a lot of athletes in general, they're very superstitious. And
Hmm.
did you have any superstition that you would do every game or every week or something like that?
I wouldn't say I was like super like extremely superstitious. I didn't really have a whole lot of them. There's only really one time, or one thing I did that was superstitious, and I remember in the 2005 season when we had our 10 game winning streak. I think it was like early to mid June, I think. The day before or actually the day of our first game, or that we won during that winning streak, I went to 7-Eleven to get a Slurpee with all the different flavors in it, before the game. On my way to the ballpark, my roommate was like, "Hey, we need to go to I need to get something at 7-Eleven quick." I was like, "Okay, cool." So he went in. I think he was getting some dip or something, and I didn't dip at all. So my vice was Slurpees and sodas. So I went and got the biggest Slurpee they had because it was a hot day in DC, and we won. And so the next day, my roommate, same thing. He's like, "Well, we won yesterday, so you got to do that. You got to do that again." So went back to 7-Eleven, got the same thing I did the day before, listened to the same song. I think I was listening to like Dr. Dre at the time. Um, and so for 10 days straight, we went to 7-Eleven, got myself a giant Slurpee with all the flavors, listened to Dr. Dre, and that's like the closest superstition that I had during my career. I had a very set a routine, but I wouldn't say it was a superstition. Because superstitions is like, if you feel like you break it, then you're not going to play that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And so the Slurpee thing was, I felt like, well, if I don't get my Slurpee, we're not going to play very well. So yeah, that was
And
mine.
Cameron, or do you have a superstition right now?
Uh, yeah, I have to have my bang in the seventh inning. If I feel like I'm about to go pitch, I have to get my. We're not sponsored, not nowhere near that, but I have to get my black cherry vanilla bang. It's
This dude
it,
drinks more
it's
bangs
got to
than
stay
water.
by me.
I'm not kidding.
That's how
Um,
I used to be with Jolt Colas, but now they don't sell those anymore. I'm kind of bummed out about it.
and I guess the only other thing is I cannot chew gum and play. Like I've noticed that there's something about chewing gum and performing isn't it
Uh,
doesn't entangle for me. And so, kind of going what he's saying, superstitions, closers, blah blah blah. The big thing now is these extravagant walkout songs and these entrances that you're seeing everywhere.
mhm.
No one's going to be able to top Trevor Hoffman and Mariano,
Right.
but like Ryan Presley's, Edwin Diaz's. I think my favorite might be Ryan Helsley's in St. Louis. Have you seen that one where
No,
they
I haven't seen that one.
turn off all the lights except everything goes red, and so the entire field's red, and then it's Hell's Bells coming in. So like,
Oh, okay.
what was your favorite? Well, I know what your song was, but do you want to tell what the people what your song was, and then is there any that stick out now? Edwin Diaz, etc.
Yeah. So when I came out to King Nothing by Metallica. I loved it. I loved the intro, super long, but DC they didn't play it a whole lot. or actually, I'm sorry, I take that back. They played it, but they didn't play it very loud because the way the stadium was made at RFK was all the speakers are literally about maybe 5 or 6 feet above the lower level seats. So a
Mm-hmm.
lot of the fans would complain, "Hey, it's too loud. Can you guys turn it down?" So they turned down, so you could kind of barely hear it. They also would play because my nickname was the Chief. So on the scoreboard, they put "Hail to the Chief" and stuff like that. So that was mine. It wasn't very extravagant. I mean, RFK didn't have all the technology like that some of the newer stadiums have. But I loved Trevor Hoffman's. I mean, it's iconic. You had the bells. You had the old mission bell at Petco that they would ring. So I loved that. I liked Brad Lidge's when they had lights out Lidge. I thought that was pretty cool. Where they turn off all the lights and stuff. I loved that. Mariano's, I mean, you can't really, go wrong with Mariano. So those are the ones that really stuck out to me, and those are the ones I love because for me, you want your crowd to you want your crowd to be involved and be hyped and be
Mm-hmm.
excited for those last 3 outs. And I think if it's because it's a spectacle. You're entertaining the people, so you want to try to get them as hyped as possible. And I think closers they have a unique opportunity to do that because yes, hitters, they have their own intros, they have their walkouts, whatever, but they're not the same as when you're at home, you're trying to get those last 3 outs for a save, and you have you have fireworks, you can take off the lights or whatever, or you have Timmy Trumpet coming out, in New York like you did that one day. I mean, that's crazy. But that's
Mm-hmm.
awesome because you can feel the energy as a player. You can feel it, and that's what you want. And
Mm-hmm.
with Edwin Diaz, like being able to do that with that, especially with that type of song, and have Timmy Trumpet come out and do it in person like that, you can't beat that.
Mm-hmm.
Because it involves the fans, and the fans are a huge part of the game, and you want them to be involved and get excited as much as possible.
And so going back to Trevor Hoffman, well, one of the things me and my family do is we travel to MLB stadiums every summer, whether it's with the Astros or watch a different team. So we've knocked out quite a few ballparks, and so kind of goes into it. So we went to Petco this summer. We went and
Uh-huh.
watched the Diamondbacks play the Padres for a 3 game set, and they had Rogers coming in to close the game out, and they still have Trevor Hoffman's bell going on and all that. So that's pretty cool.
Mhm.
But what's your favorite stadium for whatever reason, whether it was the city, the food, the
Mhm.
team you're playing against, like where would you mark your destination on the calendar?
Probably either have to be Petco or shoot, what do they call it now in San Francisco?
18-2.
No, it's not AT&T anymore. It's but yeah, the old it's whatever they
Mm-hmm.
call San Francisco now.
Mm.
I can't Oracle or is it or no Oracle? Oracle Park. That's what they call it.
Yes.
I love Petco and I love Oracle Park. I grew up a Giants fan, so I'm kind of partial to the Giants.
Mm-hmm.
But I just think that both those stadiums are unique. They're right by the water. You're kind of getting the marine layer. It's a little bit chilly down there, but the atmosphere they create down there, especially in San Diego, I love it. The stadium is beautiful, and same thing with Oracle Park. I mean, you're right there on the bay, and to me, you can't really beat that. However, Pittsburgh's backdrop is one of the best backdrops in the game. You can't beat it. When they built that stadium, they built it right. They did everything.
Mm-hmm.
They listened to the fans. They did their homework, and they had that type of backdrop with the yellow bridges in the background, with downtown Pittsburgh, and you can see the hills a little bit. I mean, that's one of the best. If not, actually, you know what? That is the best backdrop in the game.
Mm-hmm. And so us being a Houston podcast, we just have to ask, what when you came to Houston, because y'all were in the NL at the same time, what anything you did, like favorite restaurant, how close to the stadium y'all stay, anything you liked about Minute Maid, didn't like?
Yeah, so I didn't really when I was on the road, I didn't really go out a whole lot. I tended to eat at the stadium, and then if I got hungry late, I would order room service. 'Cause I think where did we stay? I think we stayed at the Galleria. I think it was called. So I think
Mm-hmm.
it was connected to the mall. And I remember I went ice skating there at that ice rink one time. And so I liked that, but I love the city. I just never explored when I was on the road a lot. A lot of times I was there to work. As I got older, the more time I spent, then I started to explore a little bit more. But I loved the stadium. Minute Maid was beautiful. The only thing I did not like was the visiting bullpen.
I knew
The
it. I knew
visiting
you were going to
bullpen
say
during
that.
the visiting bullpen during the summer was the worst. It was hot
Hmm.
because you're covered in concrete. It was hot, and you have that. I don't know. I swear they had like a sewer line that ran right underneath it. So during those hot days, and I'm pretty sure they did this on purpose. You would just get that smell of just like sewage all of a sudden. And when it's hot in Houston, that's the worst smell you could possibly be around. But that's my only complaint. Everything else was great. I love that field.
Yeah, I mean it's very dirty down there, like under that scoreboard. I don't know how it was back
Yeah.
then, but we toured it a few weeks ago, and it's not the not the most clean place down there, you know. But
No, no. I mean, because like, it's a bunch of bullpen guys doing who knows what they're doing down there, during the game. So they don't really treat the bullpens with that much respect. They're just kind of there hanging out and you know, was it? I think it was Philadelphia's bathroom in their bullpen. I think it was just covered in like sticky stuff, like all over the walls, from like guys just getting too much on their fingers and just wiping all over the walls. Sorry, it was like covered in it.
huh,
So it wouldn't surprise me if there was some stuff like that in Houston's now.
solid
That was
chance.
that was something I noticed. Oh, that was something I noticed when we walked in is that you kind of have to like walk in and then quick caddy corner. And I was like, and the mound is against the wall, so me, I,
Yep.
I have to get that last pitch in, and then I'm trying to sprint out there, and then so me to
Yep.
have to like go concrete too, because it's concrete for a while, spikes on
Hmm.
concrete, and then you
Hmm.
got to take that tight turn, open
Yep.
the gate, and then go around the Crawford boxes.
Yep.
That,
Yeah. It's
that
it's
messed
it's
me up a
different.
little bit.
Yeah. It's different. It's not the best, but at the same time, I mean, I guess it could be worse. I mean, it could be, like the old Wrigley bullpens where you're literally on the field, or San Francisco where they literally forgot to build bullpens, so they had to just build some real quick on the in foul territory with nothing protecting you at all. So it could be worse.
Mm. I guess one of the positives for Minute Maid's bullpen is you don't have to hear the fans.
Right.
It keeps you away from that. What do you have any
Yep.
funny like? What's the worst thing you're told warming up for the ninth? Like they just let you have it.
I wasn't really told a whole lot of stuff, but Philadelphia's bullpen is the worst, the worst experience I will ever have. Um, because I think a lot of people forget is like, so when they first built Citizens Bank, the Phillies bullpen was on the top, but the
Hmm.
fans were so bad to them that they moved down below. So now they put the visitors teams up top, so they can hear the brunt, get the brunt of the fans' anger issues. And so I remember when they were still playing at the old vet. So my first year up, before they tore it down, we had some people throwing batteries at us. And I remember I had been warned by a couple of my teammates, say, "Hey, just be careful. Like, I'm just warning you. Like, they're gonna throw some stuff. You might hear some stuff that you probably never thought you would hear in your entire life." I was like, "Okay, whatever." Sure enough, we did. We had 8-year-olds MFing us the entire time, and also at the same time throwing batteries at us while we're warming up. So that was probably the worst experience I had. Uh, but that was way back in 2003, and I didn't really believe that was going to happen, but sure enough, it did. So, but I wasn't really told a whole lot of negative things in the bullpens, but definitely the 2003 Veterans Stadium in Philadelphia was by far the worst.
And so this every pitcher has it. Some mounds feel like they're 5 feet to home plate, and some feel like
Yep.
they're 80 feet. What stadiums did you really just think you're throwing Chet?
So Veteran Stadium before they turned it down, because I think the backstop was kind of close, so you felt like you were like on top of the hitter. Um, Turner Field was by far the worst for me, and
Hmm.
it started from when you're warming up, because when you're warming up, the backstop, because you're staring straight from left field corner all the way across to the first base side, because there's no
Hmm.
solid background behind the catcher, and it's just literally just a chain link fence. So I felt like I was throwing like 500 feet. And mentally, when I got on the mound in Turner, I still felt like I was throwing 500 feet, because I could not get or I could not make that adjustment from the bullpen mound to the actual game. And it's because it still
Mhm.
felt like I was throwing super far. I could not get that visual out of my head. So Turner Field was probably the worst. Veterans was one of the better ones, along with Wrigley too, because Wrigley's a very short backstop as well. So Wrigley, I felt like I was throwing hard, maybe like 100 miles an hour. Probably in reality, I was maybe throwing 80.
Hey, so just one kind of last question for you before we start to wrap things up. Is there any like what's your favorite story you have from being a big leaguer, interacting with other big leaguers? Stutter was crazy.
No, man, you're good. Probably one of my favorite interactions was meeting Moises Alou for the first time. It was the 2005 All Star Game in Detroit, and I didn't really know a whole lot of guys at the time. I was a fresh face, only my first year and a half in the big league, so I was kind of often by myself in right center field, and we were taking batting practice before the home run derby. So Moises Alou comes up and talks to me, and like out of nowhere, I'd never talked to him, never met him. I just grew up watching him. Was a diehard Giants fan, so I grew up watching when he was the Giants. Um, and he starts talking to me about Cal State Fullerton, where I went to school, and I'm like, he kind of threw me off. He's like, you went to Fullerton, right? I was like, yeah. He's like, I was actually committed to go there. I was like, it kind of like blew me back. I was like, what? He's like, yeah. I was like, I was coming out of high school. I was actually committed to going to Fullerton, and I was like, there's no way. I didn't know it was possible. He's from Dominican Republic, but I realized that he went to high school, I think, in Burlingame, California, which is just south of San Francisco. So, and that's where, so he was going to high school out there when his dad was playing for the Giants. So he was talking to me about that. Ended up talking for about a half hour in right center field during batting practice, and I was like, "This is really cool." Like here, I'm a 23-year-old kid, fresh out of Cal State Fullerton, and here I am talking to Moises Alou, one of the best players in the game at the time, talking to me about how he was committed to go there. And I was like, I couldn't believe it. But after that, every time I saw him, every time he played him, if he had a chance, he would come out and say hi to me, shake my hand, give me a hug, and we start talking about how the Titans were doing after that. And I think that was the coolest thing I've ever had, to experience as far as interaction with the big leaguer. But I do remember now. I do have a kind of funny story. Okay, so back when I was first drafted by the Expos, they allowed me to fly out to New York to Shea Stadium because that's where the Expos are playing. To throw a bullpen and meet some of the guys, meet the front office, meet Frank Robinson, and take in the game. So it was myself, my dad, and my two brothers were out there watching. I hadn't probably thrown in about a week and a half since getting back from the College World Series, so my arm was a little bit rusty. So I met Frank in the clubhouse. Was super intimidated by him already because the guy is a living legend. Knew all about him, and so I'm out there throwing a bullpen, and I threw 20 pitches, and 19 out of those 20 pitches, I kid you not, were in the dirt. Nowhere close to the zone. And my dad is there standing off to the side. He's kind of over there by Frank. And I remember he said afterwards, he overheard Frank saying, "This is our freaking number one overall draft pick." And I was like, "Well, all right. Well, my career is done before it even started. So it was nice knowing all you guys." So
Yeah.
I never thought I was going to, after hearing that, I never thought I was going to be in the big leagues. And sure enough, a month and a half later after that interaction, I was in the big leagues and Frank became one of my best friends.
Wow.
That's awesome.
Got off to a
And so
great start.
I
Huh?
guess that,
Yeah, but then I
I
went
guess
down
that's
and did pretty well. So
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I guess we'll kind of wrap things up. It's been an absolute blessing talking to you. By far one of my favorite interactions. I will say MLB players are just like us. They love talking. Each one's different. Some are more weirder than you are, and so it's kind of cool having these like interactions and talking with people like you. Is there anything you want to plug? One of the ways I found out about you, TikTok, and seeing how great of content you make there. If you want to tag your TikTok, talk about what you make there, or Instagram, or whatever you want.
yeah, if you want to follow me on TikTok, you guys can. I don't even know what my handle is. I think it's just Chad Cordero or Chad Cordero 32. It's one of them. I was on there for a while. It wasn't really posting a whole lot, but I was just like, you know what, so what? I'll do it. Start talking about baseball. I have a lot to give, and talk about baseball whenever I can. Talk about coaching and talk about what I'm doing and stuff like that. So if you guys want to follow, give me a follow. Instagram, I think it's just Chad Cordero 32, and that's mostly about just posting me and my kids, and that's about it. But yeah, TikTok is where I talk about baseball and anything about coaching, softball, baseball, whatever it is. Any question you guys have, message me on there, and I try to get back to people as quickly as possible.
All right, and here's our selfish plug. All right, follow us on Twitter at Clutch City Cast. We're kind of starting up CityCast Studios. Same thing on TikTok and Instagram. We appreciate y'all for growing us as much as you have in like 2 months. Never thought we'd be talking to an MLB All Star just 2 months into it. So can't thank you enough, Chad.
Of course, man. You're welcome,
You're
guys.
awesome.
I really
Great.
appreciate it. Whenever you guys want to talk again, just shoot me a message, shoot me a text, and I'll be glad to come back on.
No,
Great.
we'll use that. We'll do that.
All right, guys. Take care.
Yes, sir.
See
Thank you
you.
so much.
All right, no problem.